Hi everyone, Jennifer from Hunter's Home, and today we're going to take a look at the cabin. So this cabin was built in 1933 by the great-granddaughters of Chief John Ross, and it looks like it was one of the very first Cherokee cultural museums. We have articles that we found in newspapers from the time, photographs of the young ladies that were in here, the pictures that they were taking of the things that they had in the house, that sort of thing. And it sat in Tahlequah for the longest time, and you can see here 1933. The last three is quite a bit faded. So it sat in Tahlequah for the longest until the ladies passed away, and then unfortunately no one else picked up the idea from them and continued it, and so it just kind of sat there for a little bit until we purchased it and moved it out here. And it sat out here lower down on our terracing for a little bit until one of our floods came and kind of caused a little bit of damage to it, and so we were able to move it up here and get it established up here. Now since then it has gone through a few different incarnations. So we've had it as a general store, we've had it as a home to interpret how the average Cherokee citizen lived here in Cherokee Nation at the time. We had it as, just a regular programming room, that sort of thing. Today we use it to depict how people would have used their kitchen spaces at the time. Since we can't do any cooking inside the house, we can't do a lot of the things that we do our programming interpretation out of here inside the house, for the safety of the artifacts in there in the house. And there's a special kind of fear and anxiety that comes with the thought of taking an open flame inside of a 19th century structure, and so we don't want to have to deal with that. And so we're going to go ahead and walk in here now, and it is set up like a home for an average citizen at the time. A lot of people will ask if it's an enslaved cabin. No, that's not the case. While the enslaved cabins may have been this size, this cabin is about 13 by 13. It definitely wouldn't have been, set up like this, furnished like this. And so at the time that we were using this as a home, we kind of interpreted it to show that this bottom floor here was the family room, the kitchen, the living room, the dining room, the bathroom, laundry room, repair room, guest bedroom, parents' bedroom. And then in these types of cabins, you would also have a loft, and that is where the kids would have slept. So they would have had pallets laid up out there, and that's where the children would have slept at the time. The family sizes here were about 8 to 9 people, and so that means that about 6 or 7 kids would have been sleeping up there at any one time. Now it does seem like a really, really tiny place. That's pretty normal back then for a lot of people. They didn't need a whole lot of space, but we also have to keep in mind that their front and backyards were extensions of their home. And so in the heat of summer, you are not going to be doing cooking, laundry, and things like that inside your home. You're going to be doing that outside of the house. And then, of course, in the winter, when everything's a lot colder, you can stay in here and stay nice and cozy. Your window areas will be closed. You may put boards in front of it, fabric, waxed cloth, and that sort of thing in here to keep, the air from being able to come through, as well as shutting your shutters, keep your fire going, and your bed warmers and things like that. Then they were also out in the barn, and their outer structures as well sometimes, and those were also extensions of their home. Now, what we have here is basically just a little kitchen setup. Now today we have some of our items here that we were able to show kind of some of the things that George Merle may have been selling here and that sort of thing. All of our supplies that we need to use on the regular course of a day in our programming, and whenever we have Living History season, you'll see dressed interpreters out here using this structure in the same way that they would have been using these structures at the time. And so we just thought that would be pretty interesting to allow folks to see. It's the staff here at Hunter's Home. This is one of our favorite places to hang out, especially because, it has food here. And so, but you can kind of see some of the items that would have been in a home of the 19th century and maybe even earlier. And so we have some tins for spice racks and things like that. Our mochaware, and we sell that mochaware in the gift shop. That's the kind of thing that we see a lot out of here when we're doing our archaeology and such. We have some honeycomb from the bees out here. We're going to render that down and use that for some of our beeswax for sewing, salves and things like that. And of course, cooking implements. We have an older version of a mano a metate here, and that was, you know, an early form of the corn grinder. And then of course we have our washing station, cleaning station, and that sort of thing. This here is, you know, those big orange coolers that you use on construction sites to keep water in? That's what this is. We use that to fill with water, and that way we're able to keep cool while we're out here in a 19th century fashion, so we don't have a bunch of stuff hanging out in plastic bottles and things like that. And then you can see under the bed is a small rollout and a trundle bed, and so that was one of the things that they had to kind of increase their space. That's likely what Margaret would have been sleeping on if she wasn't sleeping in the bed with Emily. And to back up a little bit, Emily was the niece of George and Minerva Merle. She came out here to stay in the summer of 1850, kept a diary while she was here, and that's how we know some of the things that were going on at the time. Well, she had an enslaved woman that was given to her by her dad, and we do believe that the enslaved woman, her name is Margaret, we do believe Margaret was willed to her dad by his dad, and he gave the woman to Emily. So he gifted Margaret to Emily, and Margaret became what some people call a body slave or a body servant. You'll hear those kind of terms used to describe that, and basically she is a chauffeur, chaperone, and she kind of helps to keep an eye on Emily because of course she was unmarried at the time, helps her with her bathing, helps her to get dressed, helps her with fixing her hair. If Emily can't go out and do something, she usually sends Margaret in her place. So like she was supposed to go help Araminta do some sewing and she didn't feel like it, so she sent Margaret to go do it for her. You know, things like that were the kind of services that Margaret would have been made to perform for her. And so she was likely sleeping on a trundle bed or in the bed with Emily while she was staying here. This right here shows the guest bed, though, in this aspect that we're using it out here. And then, of course, if you guys came out here, if anybody has been out here before, a couple of years ago, you will have seen this was drastically different. It was set up as a general store because, of course, George ran a general store off the property for the early part of their time here, and he was postmaster, so he ran the post office out of it as well. And so we had, you know, items that they would have been selling at the time out here, as well as the post office and all that stuff set up out here. And now, of course, like I say, we just use it for just a regular place to do some interpretation. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If there's anything else about the site that you're curious about, you want to know more about, send us an email, leave them in the comments, and we'll try to get it on our list of things to discuss or film video clips of. And thank you guys for listening.